Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya Namaskaram. Today I'm going to be talking about verse 39 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham. What Bhagavan says in this verse is, I'll read it sentence by sentence and translate. Advaitam endrum ahatu uruha. Always experience Advaita in my heart. Or podum advaitam segail artraha. Do not even once perform Advaita in action. Putrine advaitam mu uڵḷadu aham. O son, Advaita is appropriate in the three worlds. Guru vinodu advaitam ahadu. Advaita is not appropriate with Guru. Ari, no. So that is, the meaning of the verse is, always experience Advaita in the heart. Do not even once perform Advaita in action. O son, Advaita is appropriate in the three worlds. Advaita is not appropriate with Guru. No. This is a verse that Bhagavan translated, or it's adapted from verse 87 of one of Adi Shankara's works, Tattva-upadesha. The meaning of that is the meaning of the first two sentences are fairly straightforward. Always experience Advaita in the heart. That is, Advaita means one only without a second. So it cannot be, it's something that we have to experience within ourselves, as ourself. That is, Advaita is the state in which it is we alone shine as one only without a second. Do not even for a moment perform Advaita in action. This should be fairly obvious. Action occurs only in the world of only when there's the appearance of multiplicity does action take place. In the state of pure being, which alone is Advaita, there is no action. So trying to put Advaita in action is meaningless, because action is possible only when there's more than one. When there's one only without a second, there's no scope for any action. So Advaita is something that we have to experience in our heart, not put into action. So that's fairly straightforward. What is less, the next sentence, the meaning is less obvious, or the significance of the next sentence. O son, Advaita is appropriate in the three worlds. Here the three worlds refer to the worlds of the Trimurti, the three major forms of God, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. The function of Brahma is creation. The function of Vishnu is sustenance. The function of Shiva is dissolution. These functions we are performing every day. When we rise as ego from sleep, we bring this world into being. We create this world. So in both waking and dream, whatever world we perceive is our own creation. It's only when we rise as ego that everything else comes into being. As Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, Ahandayundayin anatumundaham. If ego comes into being, everything comes into being. Ahandayin drel indruanatum. If ego is not, everything is not. So by rising as ego from sleep, whether in waking or in dream, we create all this. So long as we continue to cling to this body as I, in other words, so long as ego endures, we are sustaining all this. Because all this is sustained merely by ego. And when we subside again in sleep, we bring about the dissolution of these things. So in this sense, we are performing these three functions of God, about creation, sustenance, and dissolution. In many theistic traditions, they give a lot of emphasis on God as the creator, particularly in the Abrahamic religions. God is the creator. That's the main function, or the function of God that is focused on most. In Hinduism, they generally talk about these three: creation, sustenance, and dissolution. God is not only what has created the world, but also what is sustaining the world and what dissolves the world. From a theistic point of view. As I say, from Bhagavad perspective of Bhagavan's teachings, which is deeper than any of the ordinary types of theism, what brings the world into being, what sustains the world, and what dissolves the world is ego. By rising as ego, we bring everything into being. By standing as ego, we sustain everything. By subsiding, we dissolve everything. So these three functions are often spoken about, but in Shaivism, well, particularly in Shaivism, but it's also very appropriate from the perspective of Bhagavan's teachings, they speak about Panchakritya. Panchakritya are the five divine functions. That is creation, sustenance, dissolution, veiling, and grace. As Bhagavan says in the 15th paragraph of Nana, all these five divine functions happen Isan Sanidana Visesha Matratal, by the mere special nature of the presence of God. The presence of God means the being of God. So God doesn't do anything to bring this world into being, or to sustain it, or to dissolve it, or to veil, or to do the veiling, or the grace. All this happens by his mere being. God does everything without doing anything. So, to understand these five divine functions, these panchakrityas, it's very important, firstly, to understand the significance of the fourth one, veiling, because it is only without veiling, the first three functions couldn't take place. That is, what is meant by veiling is is avidya, ignorance. We experience creation, sustenance, and dissolution only so long as the reality is concealed from us. In theistic terms, it is said God veiling is explained in terms of God is hiding himself from us. That is, if God revealed himself to us as he actually is, our ignorance would be removed, and therefore there'd be no creation, sustenance, or dissolution, these are just mere appearances. From a deeper perspective of Advaita or Bhagavan's teachings, the veiling of God hiding himself from us is our real nature being concealed from us. So long as we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are, we are in a state of ignorance in which the appearance of creation, sustenance, and dissolution take place. So without the veiling, there would be no creation, sustenance, and dissolution. So long as we have desires and attachments, we want to experience all this multiplicity, and so one of the functions of God is to keep us veil, keep our real nature concealed from us, so that we can enjoy and suffer all the pleasures and pains of embodied existence. But the most important function of God is the final one, anugraha. Anugraha means grace. From a worldly point of view, worldly people consider it God's grace if their difficulties are removed, if they get what they want, that's all by God's grace. But God's grace is actually something much deeper and more significant than that. The real form of God's grace is the removal of our ignorance, and thereby bringing a permanent end to the appearance of creation, sustenance, and dissolution. And that function of grace, that is the prerogative of Guru. That is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. From one perspective, this isn't, I'm not limited. From one perspective, they represent these functions of creation, sustenance, and dissolution. What Guru represents is the grace that removes the veiling in which the appearance of creation, sustenance, and dissolution take place. So the ultimate function of God is the function of Guru, the removal of the ignorance. That is why it is said, Guru is above, that Guru is the foremost form of God. Other forms of God are there to suit us at different stages of our spiritual development, but the ultimate manifestation of God is in the form of Guru, who comes to remove our ignorance. So we are daily performing the functions of creation, sustenance, and dissolution. But the one thing that we as ego can never do is to remove our own ignorance. That can be done only by Guru. The reason why ego cannot remove its own ignorance is that ego and its ignorance are not two different things. Ego itself is avidya or ajnana. That is, ego is the false awareness, I am this body. That is what is meant by the terms avidya or ajnana. That is spiritual ignorance. We never cease to be aware that we are, but when we mistake ourselves to be something other than what we actually are, though we're aware that we are not aware what we are. We're not aware of ourselves as we actually are. So the very nature of ego is ignorance. So ignorance cannot remove ignorance. It's only by the grace of God that the ignorance can be removed. But God is not something separate from ourselves. That is that which manifests in the form of God as the creator, sustainer, and dissolver of this world, and that which ultimately manifests in the form of Guru is nothing but our own self. So it is our self that appears outwardly in the form of Guru. Our self means our self as we actually are, what we actually are, Atma-vichara. That is what appears outwardly in the form of Guru in order to remove our ignorance. So since God is not something other than us, and since God and his grace are one and the same, that is, grace is the power of God. God and his power are not two different things. So he himself is grace. So since that grace, as Bhagavan explains in several verses in Guru Vachaka Kavai, grace is nothing but Uڵḷadu, that which actually exists, which is what shines within each one of us as the awareness I am. So this awareness I am is the true form of grace. So since grace is not something other than ourselves, it has to work through us. As Bhagavan often said, grace is not something that is up there in heaven but will one day descend on us. Grace is ever present in our heart as our own being. So the grace functions through us. So how does the grace function through us? It arouses in our heart the love to turn within and to subside back into, and thereby to subside back into our own being. That love doesn't come from ego, because the nature of ego is to cling to things other than itself. So the love to cling to its own being cannot come from ego. It can only come from our real nature. And it comes from our real nature in the form of grace. So great, that love that we have to turn within, that is Bhagavan's grace. That is the grace of Guru. So that function of Guru, giving us the love to turn within, to know ourselves as we actually are, this is something that cannot be done by ego. It can only be done by Guru, who is nothing but our own, ourself as we actually are. What we actually are that is what is manifested in the form of Guru. That is why it is said in this verse that even when it is said Advaita is appropriate in the three worlds, that means even if you go to Brahma Loka and say to Brahma, you and I are one. Even if you go to Vaikuntha and say to Vishnu, you and I are one. Even if you go to Kailasha and say to Shiva, you and I are one. That's not entirely inappropriate, because we are performing those functions of creation, sustenance, and dissolution. But we should never go to Guru and say, you and I are one, because the function of Guru, that is the ultimate function of God, the removal of ignorance, is something that ego as ego can never remove its own ignorance. It's only by the grace of Guru that our ignorance can be removed, because only the grace of Guru can give us the love to turn within, to know ourselves as we actually are. This doesn't mean that Guru is something other than ourselves, but Guru appears outwardly usually in human form. In some rare cases, like in Bhagavan's case, it appeared in the form of Arunachala, a non-human form, usually in human form. But whatever form Guru appears in, what appears in that form is nothing but our own reality. But because our mind is going outwards, it's necessary for our own being, our own Atma-sarupa, to appear outwardly in the form of Guru in order to tell us to turn within. So we should never, that is, we need to experience that Advaita in our heart. We need to experience Guru in our heart as our own self. But we should never outwardly try to put Advaita in action by saying saying to Guru, you and I are one. That is, in front of Guru, we should always be humble. We should always subside. And Bhagavan said about Guru, what Bhagavan has revealed about the nature of Guru, as far as I'm aware, it has never been revealed so clearly anywhere. Bhagavan said, Guru is Guru only in the view of a disciple. The Guru will never feel I am Guru, because for the real Guru, there are no others. So Guru will never, that's why Bhagavan never said he was Guru, or outwardly acted as if he was Guru. Though, of course, he was Guru, but he never had that, he never considered himself as Guru, but he made it clear it's not inappropriate for us to consider him as Guru, because Guru is absolutely necessary. So long as we are in ignorance, we need Guru, and Guru appears in human form. But Guru itself will never feel I'm Guru, because in the view of Guru, there are no others. There is only Advaita, one only without a second. So it's from our perspective that Bhagavan is Guru, and we should, so long as we uh, uh, are aware of the appearance of otherness, we should always be humble before Guru. We should always prostrate ourselves. We should always subside in the Guru's presence. That is the significance here. That is why it is said. But even if Advaita is appropriate in the three worlds, it is never appropriate with Guru. That is the significance of this verse. It's a very nice and subtle point is being taught here. It was this is what was expressed by Adi Shankara in his Tattvopadesha, and Bhagavan translated this to show this is also Bhagavan's own teaching. Bhagavan takes this teaching as his own for the benefit of all of us.
Thank you, Michael.
Does anyone have any questions about this?
So, on this, regarding this verse, could you give us some examples from Bhagwan's own life in which he tries to illustrate this principle?
Nothing comes to mind. I mean,
Or Muruganar's?
Bhagavan's reverence and his love for Arunachala, he's exemplifying to us how we should have so much love and reverence for the outward form of Guru. Even when we experience Guru as our own reality, we should still have reverence for the outward form of Guru, as exemplified by Bhagavan in his all-consuming love for Arunachala, for the outward form of Arunachala, knowing that Arunachala is nothing other than himself.
Mm. And Muruganar, even after achieving that state, he continued to show the reverence, right, to Bhagwan.
When Bhagavan left the body, Murugana was inconsolable. People seeing the way Murugana was weeping inconsolably, they may, I mean, Murugana was in that state. Bhagavan had given Murugana his own state, but still outwardly, Murugana had so much love for the outward form of Bhagavan that when the life of that body came to an end, Murugana was inconsolable.
Yeah. And I think that prompted Bhagwan to say, like, where can I go, right? Something to that effect.
Well, it wasn't directly to Murugan, it was to other people who were weeping. Bhagavan said, yes, where can I go? Of course, Murugan knew that, but still he had so much love for Bhagavan in his human form, though he knew that Bhagavan was his own reality and was always with him. Bhagavan is very clever. He chose a form of guru but will never depart. He chose Arunachala. But for those of us who are not able to understand the silent teaching of Arunachala, it was necessary for Arunachala to appear in human form. So when that human form departed, it seemed as if we were, well, for those who were there, it seemed a great loss. But of course, Bhagavan is not that form, so he's eternally present. He's shining in the heart of each one of us as our own being, I am.
Right.
As Murugan said in one of his verses in Sandhi Murai, the whole universe is Ramanashram, because you cannot find a place in the universe where Bhagavan is not present.
Right.
You know, Kumar, is it okay if I speak, or can
Sure,
somebody
go
else?
ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yes,
Okay.
your turn now.
You
Yeah.
know, Michael, also there's another verse by Shankara called, not verse, I mean, Guru Padaka Slokam, in which Shankara talks about, should I bow before God or Guru? And Shankara says you must bow before Guru first. Always
Yep.
bow before Guru and pay obeisance to the Guru, and
Yes.
that the Guru is really the outer form of Guru. We pay obeisance to the Padaka, Guru Padaka, the
Yes.
Padaka or the slippers or the feet of the Guru. But
Yeah.
then when we realize that Guru is our own Sadguru, the Guru within us, then we have to immerse within, and we can, when we worship Guru in the outer form, then it is as the slippers or the humility with which we worship the Guru.
Yeah.
But then when we recognize that Guru is our own inner being, then we subside, and then then creation, dissolution, and sustenance, they all subside.
Mm.
And that's when we truly have, we are rid of that ego, at least maybe
Yeah.
temporarily or permanently, as the case may be.
Yeah.
And then that is a subsidence we look
Yeah.
for. And
In,
right?
yes. In Guru Vachakokavai also, I can't remember exactly where, but one of the things that Bhagavan makes clear that real Guru Upasana, the real worship of Guru or Guru Puja, is nothing but subsiding back within, merging back into our own being. That is the true worship of Guru.
Yes. Yes. And in fact, in Indian languages and Kannada especially, I don't know if it's in Tamil too, but in Kannada they always refer to God as Ni, as a sort of in a very
I mean,
informal way you refer to God.
yeah, yeah.
But
I
then
think
Guru, but Guru, I
definitely,
think, yeah,
definitely
Guru
in
though,
Tamil.
yeah,
Yeah,
Tamil too. But then you actually refer to Guru with that humility as somebody who you have to learn from. You need to learn from the Guru. So
yeah,
you have to completely bow down to the Guru,
yeah. But
Yeah.
in stotras, when Bhagavan sang on Arunachala, he addresses Arunachala as Ni. When
As me, yes.
Murugan is singing on Bhagavan, when Sadhu Om is singing on Bhagavan, they refer to him as Ni. For
Yes.
those who don't understand, Ni is the singular and therefore the familiar form of you.
Yes.
Ningal is the respectful form, but always to God or Guru. I mean, when Bhagavan is actually there, you don't say ni to him, but when you're praying to him in your heart, you address him as ni, as the familiar, because he is the nearest and dearest. He is our own very being.
Yes. In
But
Aksharamanamala,
outwardly, we we behave with all reverence.
yes. In the Nayaka Nayaki in Aksharamanamala, is she also referring to a suitor, Shiva, as Arunachala Shiva as Ni, or as
Ni,
Nigal?
yes,
As
yes, yes,
Ni, as
yes,
Ni.
yes, yes,
Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay.
Good.
And I mean,
Thank
we
you.
have to, it shows that we have to develop that intimacy with Guru and God.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
Guru really, but Guru we have to bow to, but then with God we have to have that intimacy. Okay, well, thank you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. Namo Ramanaya.
No more.
Thank you. Um, Rebecca. So she asks a question: what are some ways to cultivate a deeper love of Guru in the physical form? Is such a devotion to the physical form necessarily beneficial to deepening bhakti?
Um, whatever love we have for Guru is 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 his Aro Prasadam, the prasad of his grace. What can we do to cultivate it? Whatever little love we have for him, it's entirely a gift of his grace. Um, but the nature of love is like a seed. Once it is planted in our heart, it will inevitably continue growing. So if we want to cultivate more love, we have to try to follow the path that Guru has shown us. In other words, we need to try to turn within more and more and more. But this is not doing anything. This is that is self-attentiveness is not an action. Attending to or knowing anything other than ourself is an action. It's a mental activity. Whereas turning our attention back towards ourself and thereby knowing ourself is not a doing but a being. Because to the extent to which we attend to ourself, we thereby subside. And the more we follow Bhagavan's path, the more we try to attend to ourselves, the more that love will grow naturally. So ultimately, the love is planted in our heart by grace, and it's nurtured and taken. I mean, it's grace that causes that love to grow. But we have to cooperate with that grace. But grace is always trying to pull our attention within. We need to cooperate with it by trying to turn our attention within. That is, we need to yield ourselves to that inward pull of grace.
May I?
Yes.
The nature. So the nature of my question comes from I'm talking about the physical form. Like when I hear some people talk about Arunachala and the love they feel for Arunachala, the form, I don't feel that. I don't feel it viscerally. And now I have known that experience, or at least what I project with my background was through Christianity, and I have felt that with Jesus, the feeling of love for the physical form. And so what I guess I'm wondering, I don't necessarily feel it now though, when I see images in my mind or in the world of Jesus. And so I guess I'm asking, what is it necessary to turn within using that physical form of like gazing at Bhagavan's face or his eyes? Sometimes it's helpful and often not though. I mean, I feel a affinity, I feel a kindness, and I feel all that from gazing at his face, but it doesn't take me to what I project this place that I think other people are touching in through the physical form.
Okay. Firstly, if we look at Bhagavan's face, if we look at Bhagavan's eyes, we can't but feel he's turning our attention back to ourselves. That is the very function of that outward form of Guru, is to turn our attention within. And as far as having love for the outward form and having love for the reality, they are really not two separate things. For example, supposing you love a person, you love your parents or your husband or wife or children or whatever. Of course you have love for the form, but it's not really just the form you're having love for. You're having love for that person who is represented by that form. And of course, if we suffer bereavement, if someone we love passes away, we feel that separation from their form. But at the same time, it's not just that form that we love. It's what is shining through that form. So in the case of Bhagavan, what is appealing about Bhagavan's form is what is shining through that form is our own self, our own reality. So that's what gives us love for that form. But it's not just for form. It's what is shining through that form.
And I mean, oddly, it was an odd experience, but a powerful one where I actually had that experience with my own form. Like, when I was reading in something that Bhagavan wrote about, you don't need a mirror to see, to know your face, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
in my mind's eye or in my heart or whatever, I went to that experience of,
yeah,
and so it feels like that was an experience of what you're saying.
yeah,
Like, I don't, it's not this form that I love
yeah,
myself, this body and face and
yeah,
whatnot. It's that other thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's what,
Is
yeah.
that sort of what you're pointing to?
Yes, yes, yes. See, however much we love a person, when that person passes away, what do we do with that form? We cremate it or we bury it or something. So it's not the form that we owe, it's what is
Yeah.
shining through that form. So when we have love for the outward form of Guru, we have love for what is shining through that.
Yes.
We can
And
see
so,
that also in temple worship, when that is vigrahas, the form of God, but is worshipped in temple. That form is made by a craftsman.
mm,
When a vigraha is installed in a temple, and they have a something called prana pratishta, which is bringing life into that form. It's a ritual they do, but before that, that form is it's just a stone or it's something lifeless. They bring the life into it. So this is the same thing. It's not the form that matters. It's what's shining through the form.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's what the cat, you know, in my life as a Catholic,
Yeah,
people would just go to the chapel and pray to the monstrance, to the host that
yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah,
it is the same thing. That
yeah,
form took
yeah,
them to a different place that
yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't never like got
yeah.
that so much. But it's,
But
yeah,
Bhagavan talks about this in Arunach Ashtakam. That is, even if we understand that God is formless and know that God is formless, yeah, I mean, even if we're convinced that God is formless, we cannot know God as formless so long as we know ourselves as a form. So trying to meditate on God as formless, he says it's like uh, 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 trying to wandering all over the world, trying to see the sky.
yes,
You can never get so long as we experience ourselves as a form, whatever idea we have of God, even if you've got an idea of God, God is formless. That idea is itself a mental form.
yes,
That's
I
why
see.
whenever anyone criticized worship of name and form, Bhagavan always strongly defended it. He said, if you want to criticize other people worshiping God in name and form, first give up worshiping name and form yourself. And if a
Yeah.
person said, no, no, I never worship form, what are you doing every day? You're worshiping this filthy body as if it were yourself. Every
Mhm.
day you get up, you have bath, you put on nice clean clothes, you offer nice food to this body and everything. Exactly the same people are doing in the temple to that form. So before you criticize what people are doing in the temples, worshiping God in form, first stop worshiping this form as if it were yourself.
That's helpful. That's very clarifying.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is, we know this body is not I. If we think about it, it's very obvious this body is not I. But how much we cherish this body, how much this body, that though we on one level we understand this body is not I, but at the same time, it's our experience is that this body is I. I am sitting, I am talking, I am doing this, I am doing that. That is, on one level we know it's not I, but on a very deep experiential level, we actually experience this body as I. Where am I? I am here, not there.
Mhm.
We are so much, we have such strong identification with the body. So long as we have this strong identification with the body, it's appropriate to worship God in form. And particularly when God Himself appears in human form for us to show us the way to uh, to know ourselves as we actually are. Of course, we have love for that form. We can't but have love for that form.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. Well, thank you, Michael. I
Right,
appreciate that deeply.
right.
Kumar I have a question. If anyone is in queue, I will go after.
Is this related to the verse?
It's related to what you just said.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So, Michael, you said one comment a few minutes back, which is whenever we think about anything other than focusing on the self, it's a mental activity. And whenever you think about the self or attempt to think about the self, that is no longer a mental activity. Is that right?
It's not thinking about the self, directing our attention back towards ourself. It's not the self, as when we say the self, it sounds like some other thing. It's ourself. To the extent to which our attention is directed towards ourself, we as ego thereby subside. And when we subside, all our activity subsides along with us. When we direct our attention towards anything other than ourself, anything other than our own being, ego thereby, I mean, that nourishes and sustains the appearance of ego.
And it's a mental activity at that point.
It's a mental activity, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That is the first activity is our rising as ego. That first activity is what gives rise to all other activities. That's why Bhagavan said, in Christianity we have a concept, original sin. Bhagavan said, original sin is nothing but ego. In other words, the original sin is the sinner itself. Our very rising as ego is the first sin and the cause of all other sins.
Got it. Thanks, Michael.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Stephen Sai, go ahead, please. Stephen?
Thank you. So, Michael, I see how moved you get, at least my feeling of how moved you get when you speak of Bhagwan's transition of form. Can you say more about your moved feelings so I can better interpret what was going on for you and maybe understand something different for me?
I don't know how to say. That is, for me, Bhagavan is so much more than that form. But because he appeared in that form, and it's through that form that he's given us these teachings. And if we just look in Bhagavan's eyes, we can see the love and the. I mean, we can't but love Bhagavan. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Even in saying that, I recognize my own compassion, not only Bhagwan, but other places where form, I'm attached to form.
Yes.
And the end of that form or detachment from that form solicits that kind of response.
Yes.
Raw. And I wanted to hear a more solid understanding from someone who has a deep compassion. And so thank you for that.
When I was trying to answer your question, some words of Bhagavan came to my mind. In Aksharamlai, he addresses Arunachala as Teda Dutranal Tiruvarol Nidhi. That is the treasure of divine grace found without seeking. How he came to our life, and I mean, that's such a beautiful description.
Well, you answered my question. Thank you.
Right.
Or my request. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Coming back to sort of your journey here, you once told me that you used to go around Arunachala Hill almost daily. You were there, right? Close to 20 years.
Yeah. Most of the time, yes.
Most of the time. So That sort of was your bhakti practice. Can you put it
I
that way?
didn't think of it like that. I just like going around Arunachala.
What was your prompting? Why did you do that?
Because I like doing it.
Like doing it. Okay, so what I'm trying to come at is it's not practically possible for the vast majority of people who are here right now
Yeah,
and
yeah,
who may be watching on the YouTube channel and or
yeah.
Vimeo channel once we post on it. What is it that they can do that will be equivalent to that?
Well, if we are there, it's I don't know. Going around Arunachala is if we have the opportunity to go around Arunachala, it's I don't know. For me, it's just something I just love doing. Um, though I've not been there now for nearly 30 years. Well, I've been there a few times, but hardly. Um, but still, the love for going around Arunachala is there. Um, the thing
Like a lot of
about
people don't have the facility, right? Like,
Arunachala,
yeah,
um, if we're there, we can go around Arunachala. But even if if we are physically fit, we can go around Arunachala. There are people who are there who are not physically able to
right.
go around Arunachala. So we can just look at Arunachala. But those who are far away, we cannot even look at Arunachala. But the speciality of Arunachala, Smaranat Arunachalam, mere thought of Arunachala um, will give liberation. As Bhagavan says, Mukti Nene Kavarol Arunachal Munnidave. The end of second verse of Arunachala Patikam. That the mere thought of Arunachala will give liberation. And there's a verse that Bhagavan wrote under, yeah, he first wrote it under a picture of Arunachala, and then I think under several pictures of Arunachala he wrote it. So in the Tamil collected works of Bhagavan, this verse is printed under a picture of Arunachala. Karuna Navamai Karudakkadinal Arunachala Shiva Midan. This is Arunachala Shiva, which, being the ocean of grace, bestows liberation when thought of. So mere thought of Arunachala is sufficient. And how that thought of Arunachala works is explained by Bhagavan in verse 10 of Arunachala Patikam. What he says there, Patanam Pudumai Uyevali Kanta Parvatam. I have seen a wonder, the magnetic hill that forcibly seizes the soul. Idane Orudarum Ortidum Virin Sheshtei Oduki, subduing the mischievous activity of the soul who thinks of it once. Mischievous activity implies the outward going activity of the mental activity of a soul who thinks of it even once. Oru Tanadu Abhimukamaha Etu, pulling to face towards its unique self, or itself for one. Ade Tanbol Achalama Chedu, making it motionless like itself. Ab Inui Bali Kolum. It will take that sweet soul as bali. Bali means what is offered in sacrifice. So what he's saying here, he's explaining what happens when we think of Arunachala. When we think about the outward form of Arunachala, it will subdue the outward going activity of the mind. It will pull the mind within to face itself, for one. When he says oru there, Tanadu Abhimukamaha means aha itu, pulling to face towards itself. That oru means one. We can take it as it's unique self or itself the one. So it is the one. Oru is actually adjective form there, but we can also take it as implying it is the one reality. So it is that which is shining in our heart as our own being. So pulling to face towards itself means pulling our attention back within. By pulling our attention back within, it thereby makes us motionless, achala, like itself. And through this process, it matures us. It makes us pakpa, makes us well ripened, well cooked. So that's why he says, of inwir, that sweet soul, that sweet, there the word sweet implies that it is fully ripened, it is well cooked. The Sanskrit word pakva means both ripe and cooked, like a fruit that is fully ripened or food that is very well cooked. He's not using the Sanskrit word, but it has the same implication of Inuit, that sweet soul. He takes it as bali. Bali is when a sacrificial offering is made to God. God takes that as bali. Bali means what that sacrificial offering. So we offer ourselves to Him. We become willing to offer ourselves to Him by this process of His grace. That is, first He makes us think of Him, and by that He triggers a process of grace, but will slowly subdue the outward going activity of the mind. The word he uses, cheshte. Cheshte means activity. In Tamil, cheshte particularly means mischievous activity. If children are misbehaving, or you refer to it as cheshte, so it's that mischievous activity. What that implies is mental activity. All activity is mischievous. So how does it subdue that? It slowly gives us the clarity to distinguish, the clarity of viveka. So we become less and less enthusiastic about this world. We become less and less the idea that this world is a place of happiness, that we can extract happiness out of this world by accumulating wealth or this or that or whatever. That slowly we're given the clarity to understand this. We will the happiness but we've been seeking from the world for so many countless lives. We're never going to get that happiness from this world. So by giving us that clarity, that discrimination, slowly we get. It gives us the vairagya, the freedom from desire for this world. So slowly the mind becomes less enthusiastic in jumping outwards. It's all a very subtle process of grace. So that's how it subdues the activity of the soul, the mental activity, and when that enthusiasm to jump outwards is subdued, then by its grace it pulls us inwards to face itself. By making it face itself, which means ourself, that is our nature, nothing but ourself, it thereby makes us motionless like itself. Because so long, as I was saying earlier, so long as we attend to other things, that's a mental activity. When we attend to ourselves, the one who is attending, namely ego, subsides, and all its activity subsides along with it. So thereby it makes us motionless like itself, and having thereby made us pakva, made us mature, made us ripe, made us sweet, he then feeds upon us. And then he says, "Ich den," this is what. That's an expression of wonder. And then he ends by saying, "Wir Karl." He addresses us, souls. Ulam adanil oli ibui koli arunama giriye or tumin. I'm reading the Anvayam, actually the order of words in the verses, or tumin, be say, Ortumin Weikal Ulamadil Oririv Weikoli Arunamagiriye. Be saved by thinking of the great Aruna Hill, this killer of the soul who shines in the heart. So though it starts off, we think of the outward form of Arunachala, eventually when it feeds upon us and kills us, we recognize that it was what was ever shining in our heart as our own being. So this verse also illustrates, I mean, almost every verse in Stuti Panchakam you can find this. Bhagavan is both talking about the outward form of Arunachala and the inner reality of Arunachala, which is shining in our heart.
So basically,
so
your
mere thought of Arunachala is sufficient. But mere thought of Arunachala, it means not only thought of the external form of Arunachala, but thought of what is the reality of Arunachala. In other words, self-attentiveness itself is that is the tattva of thinking of Arunachala. That is the significance of it. So we start off thinking of the form, outward form, then we begin to recognize that what appears outwardly in that outward form is what is ever shining in our heart as our own being.
There's a famous verse of Bhagavan where he says, "Thou dost root out the ego of those who dwell on thee in the heart." Right?
Yes, and that verse has, that's the first verse of Aksharamlai. Arunachala mena ahamainine parva ahatevera rupai Arunachala. There are several ways we can interpret that, because ahame can mean in the heart. It can also mean only I. So it can also mean that Arunachala, you root out the ego of those who recognize that Arunachala alone is I. There's no I other than Arunachala. That's another way we can interpret it. So it's and meditating on him in the heart means what? He's ever shining in our heart as our own being. So meditating on him in the heart means meditating on our own being. Because he is what is shining in our heart as I. That is the word aham is in Sanskrit, it's the first person pronoun I. There's a separate word, and in Tamil it can also be used. The Sanskrit word can be used in Tamil in that sense. But there's also a separate Tamil word, aham, that means what is inside. It can mean heart, it can mean home. For example, an eating place, a restaurant, in Tamil, the Tamil word for a restaurant is unavaham, food home. So aham is used in the sense of physical home, the place, the house you live in. It also means our real home, which is in the heart. It also means heart, so it's got so many meanings. So Bhagavan often uses this word, aham, with a double meaning, meaning both what is inside and I.
Right. Thank you, Michael. So, so the practical guidance for people who, which is the vast majority actually, who can't really make the trips to Tiruvannamalai and sort of go around the hill, is no matter where they are, just the thought of Arunachala will help them. To turn within. And then any aids.
Arunachala and Bhagavan are one and the same. So thought of Bhagavan is thought of Arunachala. So everything that Bhagavan says in this verse about thinking about Arunachala equally applies to thinking about Bhagavan.
Right.
Because
and then any aids that will help them turn
form.
within. They can use that. So Melissa.
We also have to remember what Bhagavan says in verse 8 of Upadesha Undiyar. Anya bhavatin ahvanahamahum ananya bhavamay undipara anatinum utamam undipara. Anya bhava means meditation. Well, in that context, it means meditation on God as if he was something other than ourselves. In other words, meditation on God in name and form. Rather than that, Ananya bhava. Ananya means what is not other. So that meditating as not other than oneself. Abhanahamaham, in which he is I. That is, having understood that God is what is shining in us as I, if we then meditate on nothing other than I, that is the best among all. That's better than meditating on him in name and form. That is why in this verse 10 of Paticum, he says, those who think of it once, it subdues the mischievous activity. That implies it subdues the enthusiasm with which the soul rushes outwards, and thereby draws it back within, well, and draws it back, having subdued that outward going enthusiasm, it then pulls it back within. So to face itself. Itself means the shining in our heart as our own being. So attending to I is the best way of thinking of Arunachala or thinking of Bhagavan.
Thank you, Michael. I have 4 questions, and I think that should be enough time to wrap it up. The next question is from Melissa. Melissa, do you want to go ahead? See your question there?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi. I've asked this question before, and I'm maybe just a small refinement. I just wonder why, in the phrase, if ego comes into being, everything comes into being. I wonder why the translation of the Tamil that's being used is being, when the truth is that nothing comes into being except what always already is being, which is pure awareness being.
Yes.
So just why is the word being used as the translation rather than appearance, which seems to be a more accurate pointing to the nature of reality?
Yes, but it is an appearance. It is an appearance. But things seem to exist. Things seem to be. All this world, it is an appearance. And being an appearance means it seems to be. The snake is just an appearance, but it seems to be a snake. It seems to actually be there. It exists. So Bhagavan doesn't say that it actually comes into being. In fact, he makes it very clear. One thing Bhagavan often said is whatever exists at one time, but not at another time, doesn't actually exist even when it seems to exist. And
yes.
the same idea is expressed by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 16. And this is one of the verses that Bhagavan selected and translated into Tamil. The meaning of that verse is, there is no existence of what doesn't exist, and there's no non-existence of what does exist. What does that imply? That means whatever. Bhagavan explained the implication of that by saying whatever seems to exist at one time and not at another time doesn't actually exist, even when it comes in, even when it seems to exist, because what really exists must always exist. anything that gains, anything that comes into existence or comes into being and ceases to be, it is not intrinsically existent. It's
Yes.
a borrowed existence. And
Yes.
Bhagavan, we can understand from Bhagavan's teaching that everything that seems to exist borrows its semi-existence from ourself as ego. Because it's only in the view of ourself as ego that all this seems to exist. So without ego, none of these things seem to exist. That's why Bhagavan says, if ego comes into being or comes into existence, you can say either way, everything comes into being. If ego is not, everything is not. So,
Yes.
I mean, the thing is, in order to understand Bhagavan properly, we need to not just take one thing here, one thing there. We need to have a coherent understanding. So we need to connect all the different strands of his teachings. Then we understand. As soon as he talks about coming into being, whatever comes into being is a mere appearance.
Yes.
That is
So,
what is real, what actually exists, neither comes into being nor ceases to be, because it eternally is. Whatever comes into being and ceases to be doesn't really exist, even when it seems to exist.
yes, thank you, Michael. That is very clear.
Right.
That is shining
Yes.
as in clarity.
Yeah.
I just wonder. It would seem that Ramana would have always picked exactly the right word to, especially with such an important phrase as
Yes.
this one.
Yes. Yes.
That he would have picked the Tamil word for
Yes.
appearance. I just wonder
Yeah, he
why
could have.
that
For example, in the final paragraph of Nana, he says exactly the same idea, but there he uses the word appearance.
okay.
Wait a
Okay.
second. Oh no, sorry. I'm wrong. He uses the word rise. Tan
Rise.
erendal sakaloma erum. If one's self rises, everything rises. Tan
Okay.
adanginal sakalom adangon. If one's self subsides, everything subsides. But whether he says
Okay.
rises or appears or comes into being, it all means the same.
Yes, but I think it's an important shade of meaning, and using rising or appearance, it clearly points to the apparition. It's an apparition. It's not real.
Yes.
Whereas using the word being, I think, is misleading. That's all. So thank you, Michael.
Well, the word he used in for coming into being, it's undahum. Undu is is the Tamil equivalent of in English when we say there is. There is a book on the table. So you say the word you would use for in Tamil for there is in that context is undu. So undu is definitely denoting existence, and ahum means either to be or to become. So what becomes existent, but the very fact that it becomes existent or comes into being is itself indicates that it's an appearance. If we understand the broader teachings, anything that comes into being is a mere appearance.
Okay. All right.
Only what exists always is what really exists. Other things just merely seem to exist.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Right. And another important thing about that verse, and also in this final paragraph of Nana, Bhagavan doesn't say when ego comes into being, everything comes into being. He says if ego comes into being. And here he says if ego rises, or if oneself rises, everything rises. So Bhagavan is indicating by that word if that it's a
Yes.
concession to our perspective, but it's not, none of it is real.
Yes. Well, that's important for me.
Yeah.
I'm because the if gives it the that it's that it's not real.
It's not. Yeah.
Whereas and even the when, which brings into the notion of time,
Yeah.
because time is not real either.
No.
So
When he says if ego comes into being, everything comes into being, time is included with that everything. In sleep, there's
yes,
no experience of time because there's no ego.
yes,
It's only when
yes.
time, space, everything comes into being, only when ego, or comes into seeming being, only when ego comes into
Seeming
seeming
being,
being.
yes. That for me,
Yeah.
that is especially important. Thank you, Michael.
Right.
Thank you, Michael. So let's go to the next question from Sanjay Lohia. Sanjay, go ahead.
So, sir, a friend of mine
Mm.
has requested me to ask you this particular question. I'll read it out to you, sir.
Mm.
He's Praful.
Yes.
So, he says, respected Michael, sir, you have very kindly mentioned Ekajiva Vada before. Could you please explain it in a little more detail? What I had gathered from one of your earlier references was that as per Ek Jiva Vada, there is only one ego and there are different names and forms. The example you had given was that in a dream conjured by me ego, there are several names and forms, and I, that is ego, identify with one of them as me. So he gives two examples here. If this construct is to be extended to the world that I am perceiving in waking state, then does it mean that I, ego, have created this world and have identified with this individual person called Praful, while all other individual names and forms that I am perceiving are also me? Number two, he says here is, in such a case, are you, Michael, sir, and all other individuals that I, Praful, meet are my ego's creations, and you all are not doing your individual sadhana journey towards removing your individual ignorance, become aware of self again. So I'll halt here, sir. This is the gist.
Okay.
Yeah.
The important thing to understand is the distinction, but Ekajiva means one jiva or one ego. We need to understand the distinction between ego and the person whom ego seems to be. In a dream, for example, the dreamer of the one who is dreaming is not the person we seem to be in the dream. The person we seem to be is a part of the dream. Because we, as ego, experience ourselves as a person, every person seems to us to be an ego. So in dream, we meet many people. Those people seem to be seeing the same world we are seeing. If we ask anyone in our dream, do you see this tree? They'll say, yes, of course I see it. I'm seeing exactly the same as you're seeing. So long as we're dreaming, there seem to be a multiplicity of jivas in that dream. Because because the one jiva who is dreaming and experiencing it experiences itself as a person. Every person consequently seems to be a jiva. So there seem to be a multiplicity of jivas. If we say to someone in a dream, oh, you're just my mental projection, they're not going to be very happy about it. They're probably going to strongly object to it. So we have to behave appropriately in this according to Bhagavan, this present state we're experiencing is nothing but a dream. But because in this dream, we mistake ourselves to be a person, to be Praful or Sanjay or Michael or Kumar or whoever, whatever person we mistake ourselves to be, because the who is experiencing all this is ego. Because ego experiences itself as a person. It seems that the person is experiencing this. So it seems to me now that Michael is experiencing all this because I mistake myself to be Michael. And because I mistake myself to be Michael, every other person, Praful and Sanjay and Kumar and all the other billions of people, not only human people, all the cows and dogs and cats and elephants and all sorts of creatures, they also seem to be experiencing the world just as we are. Maybe a little bit differently because their senses are a little bit different. So but essentially they're seeing the same world we're seeing. So it seems to us. So long as we are looking outwards, there's an appearance of a multiplicity of jivas. But to whom does this multiplicity of jivas appear? There is one jiva who sees this multiplicity of jivas. That one jiva in whose view the multiplicity of jivas seem to exist, that is the one jiva. In other words, that is the dreamer. It is not the person who is the one jiva. It's not Praful who is the one jiva, or Sanjay, or Michael, or Kumar who is the one jiva. It is the I that is aware of itself as I am this person, but is the one jiva. So when we are looking outwards, there's the appearance of a multiplicity of jivas. So we need to act in this world with kindness and compassion, and because that's how it seems to be. It seems to be that I'm no different to anyone. Because if I take myself to be this person, there's nothing special about this person, because every other person seems to be the same, seems to suffer and undergo the same experience of pleasure and pain and everything. All this seems to be so. So long as we're looking outwards, we behave in this world as we experience the world, which is as if there are many jivas. But so why did Bhagavan teach Ekajivavada? The reason he taught this is in order for us to turn within, to investigate who is the one jiva in whose view all these many jivas seem to exist. So we need to, the purpose of Ekajivavada is to turn our attention back to ourselves. Ekajivavada Ekajivavada goes along with what is called Drishti Shrishtivada. Drishti Shrishtivada means, Drishti means, literally means seeing, or perceiving, experiencing. And Shrishti means creation. So Drishti Shrishtivada, according to Drishti Shrishtivada, the mere perception of this world is what brings this world into being. Just like in a dream, the dream world doesn't exist independent of our perception of it. So long as we're dreaming, it seems that the world is existing independently. But the world was the experience of dream. It was there before we were born. It's going to be there after we die. So it seems to be. So though the world seems to be existing independent, actually it does not exist independent of our perception of it. As we recognize, as soon as we wake up from a dream, we recognize, oh, it was just a dream. It was only a mental fabrication. It had no existence independent of the mind that saw it. So this Drishti Shrishti Vada and Ekajiva Vada, they go hand in hand. They're inseparable. If you accept the Drishti Shrishti Vada, you have to accept Ekajiva Vada. So this is what Bhagavan taught us. But we also have to remember this is not the ultimate truth. So long as we perceive all this multiplicity, to whom does all this multiplicity appear? It appears to me. So it's only when this me, this I, come into rise as a separate entity that all this multiplicity comes into being. That's why he says in verse 26 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, if ego comes into being, everything comes into being. If ego is not, everything is not. Ego itself is everything. So, but the purpose of this teaching, that is Bhagavan, whatever Bhagavan teaches, it has a practical purpose. The purpose of this teaching is that since all this appears to me, who is this I to whom all these things appear? That is what we need to investigate. That's why Bhagavan, as a very valuable clue to keeping our attention on ourselves, Bhagavan says, whatever may appear, to whom does it appear? That is what we need to investigate. In other words, we need to turn our attention away from whatever appears, away from the multiplicity of jivas who seem to exist. We need to turn our attention back towards ourselves, the one to whom this multiplicity seems to exist. In other words, who is this I in whose view all these many other I's seem to exist? That is the purpose of this Ekajiva Vada. So people often talk about this as solipsism. Solipsism is the idea that there's only one. But solipsism, as it's usually understood, is taking that there's only one person. But that is not what Bhagavan is teaching. Bhagavan never taught that there's only one person. Of course, there's a multiplicity of people, but there's only one I in whose view all these many people seem to exist. So this person I seem to be is in no way special. That is, this person is of no should be of no greater concern than any other person, because this person is just a person. But this person, the problem is because this person seems to be I, because this person seems to be I, for me, this person seems to be special, but every other person also seems to be an I. So for all those other I's, the person each I takes itself to be seems to be special. So we need to, this is not to be understood as saying there's only, that we need to, it's a very subtle teaching. We shouldn't apply it outwardly. So long as we're experiencing this world where there's the appearance of many jivas, and we have to behave in this world accordingly. We have to be kind and considerate to others, because those others seem to be every bit as real as this person we seem to be. But in order to help us to turn within, to find out the reality underlying all these things, in whose view does all these many seem to exist? That is, we cannot know the truth of what is known without knowing the truth of the knower of it. So we first need to investigate ourselves, find out what we really are, then only we will know the reality of everything else. But the ultimate truth is, when we investigate this one ego that is experiencing all this, we will find even this one ego doesn't actually exist. because we seem to be ego only so long as we're attending to things other than ourselves. When we turn our attention back towards ourselves, if we turn our attention back towards ourselves keenly enough, we will experience ourselves as the pure and infinite Sat-Chit that we actually are. Sat-Chit means being awareness, the pure being awareness that we actually are. We will experience ourselves as such only when we turn our attention back to ourselves. When we experience ourselves as the one infinite Sat-Chit, then it will be clear there's no jiva at all. There's no such thing as ego at all. But so long as we experience all this multiplicity, we seem to be ego. So we need to investigate this one ego whom we seem to be. This one ego in whose view all these many other egos seem to exist. I hope that's a clear explanation for that.
Yes, it is clear. I'll share this with Praful. So this Ekajiva Vada is in practical teaching. It's not merely a philosophy that some ideas are given to us.
Bhagavan's teachings, Bhagavan's philosophy is all practical. Bhagavan doesn't teach us anything, but he's not a philosophy professor. He's not here to teach us some nice philosophy, but his philosophy is an entirely practical philosophy. For many people, Advaita philosophy has become a mere philosophy. Nice ideas to talk about. But the whole point of Advaita, I mean, Advaita philosophy is pointless if we can't apply it in practice. So what is the correct application of Advaita? What does Advaita mean? It means there's one only without a second. So how to experience one only without a second? So long as we're attending to things other than ourselves, we are sustaining the appearance of multiplicity. If we want to bring an end to this appearance of multiplicity, we need to attend to ourself alone. So self-attentiveness alone is the correct Advaita Abhyasa, the correct practice of non-duality. Because any other practice, you've got two. You've got a subject and an object, a meditator and a thing that is meditated upon. Whereas this is self-attentiveness, self-meditation, self-contemplation. We are to attend to nothing other than ourselves. And thus we experience, this is the only way to experience ourselves as one without a second, which is what we really are.
Thank you, sir.
Before we go to Sadasiva, I think I saw the hand raised from Bruce. Bruce, go ahead.
Just a comment that Ekajiva Vada is more like an aid and a tool for one-pointed attention. That's all it is. It's not.
Yes.
It's not anything more than that. It's just an aid for one-pointed attention.
All the teachings are just an aid for one-pointed self-attentiveness.
Yeah. Anyways, that was my comment.
That is the sole purpose of all Bhagavan's teachings. The sole purpose of all his philosophy is to turn our attention back to ourselves, to see what we actually are, to know ourselves as we actually are.
So the important thing is that it's just a tool and an aid. That's all it is. Don't dwell on it any more than that. It's really, I mean, it's okay, but
it is useful to remind ourselves. But all this appears to one. Who is this one? To whom it
who
all
is that
appears?
one? Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bruce. That's what I wanted to mention too. So, and thanks for stressing that. And then Sadasiva, this question will conclude. Go ahead, Sadasiva.
Okay. I have the question. When the apparent realizes wholeness, for some it seems like there's a manifestation of an ache
or an intense yearning for all to realize wholeness. And I wonder, is this ego trying to undermine realization, or is it the Ananda aspect of Satchitananda?
This word realization is not actually a very helpful word. It's a bit of a confusing word. Bhagavan generally didn't talk in English, but he understood English, so he sometimes would use English words for a particular purpose. So regarding this word realization, what Bhagavan said is, what is real is always real. It doesn't need to be realized. The problem is that we have realized the unreal. So all we need to do is to unrealize the unreal, and the real alone will remain. So it is not that ego will realize anything. Ego will die. What knows the reality, what knows the reality is only the reality. That is, the reality is pure awareness. What knows pure awareness can never be an object of awareness. So what knows pure awareness is only pure awareness. So it's not that we're going to realize anything. Pure awareness always knows pure awareness. The problem is now we seem to have risen as ego and to be knowing all this multiplicity. If we as ego turn our attention back within, we will thereby subside and dissolve back into our own being. Then it will be clear we have never risen as ego. We are eternally that that one immutable pure awareness, Satchit, being awareness. So it's not one thing realizing another thing. That was the main point I wanted to clarify. There was a bit more to your question, but I didn't quite understand the rest of the question.
Well, it seems that when this experience takes place, it seems like a natural yearning or an ache for others or for all to experience the same wholeness. And I wonder, is that just ego?
No. Because when we experience that, there are no others.
Yeah, I know, but it just seems like you want everything, you want all to wake up. I don't know. It's hard to
That is,
explain.
when you wake up from a dream, are you concerned about all the people who you've left behind in the dream? Do you wonder whether they've woken up or not? It's so clear when you wake up from a dream, but all those others were your own mental fabrication. So if a dreamer wakes up from a dream, that is sufficient. The dream comes to an end. And all the many that appeared in that dream cease to exist along with the dream.
So this could just be an experience of the Ananda aspect of Satchitananda.
No, when we experience Ananda is not something different from pure awareness. So Ananda is experienced when we experience ourselves as pure awareness. As pure awareness, we always experience ourselves as pure awareness. Now, as ego, we seem to have separated ourselves. But when we investigate ourselves, we find that actually we were always pure awareness and never anything other than pure awareness. So we are always Ananda and never anything other than Ananda. Sat is Chit, Chit is Ananda. They're not three separate things. They're one and the, they're three ways of describing one and the same thing.
I see. I don't know why, but it seems like this is a natural. I don't know if it's a state of being or a natural. I don't know what it is exactly, but it seems natural for me.
Okay.
Anyway,
When
thank
you say it seems, to whom does it seem?
yes,
That is what we need to investigate. So
that's
many
why I
things
was.
seem to be. This world
I,
seems to be a vast universe. That time seems to go on for endless years. Everything
that's
seems very vast, but it all seems. There
no,
seem
that's
to be
why
so
I
many
asked.
people. There seem to be so many. Every person seems to be a jiva, but to whom does
No,
all this seem to be?
that's why I asked.
That's
It could be ego just trying to uh, raise his head and say, "Wait a minute,
yes, 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 yes,
you've got it now, now everybody should get it," and blah
yeah.
blah 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 blah.
So
Okay,
long as there's any thought of, so long as there's the appearance of many, ego is not yet dead, because it's only in the view of ego that the many seem to exist.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
If you remember our last meeting, we talked about verse 38 of that was at the beginning of January. We talked about verse 38 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham, in which Bhagavan says, when oneself always stands without departing in the state of oneself, without knowing as oneself and others, who is there besides oneself? So it's only when we rise as ego that there seem to be others. But when we remain as we actually are, who is there besides oneself? There's no one else.
Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
So with that, we'll conclude today's session, and I will see you again next month.
Yes, okay.
Namo
For the
Ramana.
final verse of
Exactly
Uḷḷadu
right.
Nāṛpadu Anubandham.
And that's a beautiful verse.
Yes, yes.
Pretty much it summarizes the
Everything.
entirety, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramanaya.